Welcome back to Northwest Arkansas, Josh.
No, thank you. I love this place, and I tell everybody all the time, like it's a unique place with incredible talent and a lot of great companies that really care about the community. But you guys got to stop telling people about it. Like there is massive amount of people that's coming here, and you don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. So keep this little jewel kind of safe in its little Northwest Arkansas little location. And but I love every time I get to come here. I really enjoy it.
Well, we enjoy having you here. Thank you very much for joining us again. And I know it's Halloween time, and it's a special time for you at home. And we had talked about that because we were originally going to speak tomorrow, but you have big plans tomorrow. Tell me about those plans.
Yeah, Halloween's one of my favorite holidays. It's probably my favorite holiday. And so I go, obviously, trick-or-treating out with the kids, but we also have a family tradition that's been going on for a really long time now in my family, long since I was a kid and even before that. And we have, so I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have Cincinnati chili, for those of you that don't know what that is. That's just a very unique chili with cocoa and cinnamon, and it's something that's hard to explain, so you got to try it. But we always have our Cincinnati chili, and then we drink margaritas, and then we go trick-or-treating. So it's fun. And then, of course, we all dress up as a family. And so every year we kind of pick a theme, and we do it. This year, we are going to be, yeah, I know. This is the breaking news, everyone.
This is it.
So I have a son that's 2 and myself. We are going to be Travis Kelce. And then I've got a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old girl, and then my wife are all going to be different Taylor Swifts. And so it's going to be fun. Very, very pop culture centric.
You'll send pictures back. That will definitely
will.
be the breaking news, the trailer news, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Tell us a little bit more, too, before we dive here into the real breaking news, a little bit more about Josh and your background and what you do at Cox.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, so I've got Midwest roots. My father was part of the computer industry in the boom, and so a lot of amazing action happening. He worked for a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, and so if anybody doesn't know, Digital Equipment Corporation, basically the MIT lab, when it created the personal computer, broke into 2 sides. It broke into the IBM side and the Digital Equipment Corporation side and took those licenses and moved forward. Anyway, long story short, my father got an opportunity to move out to the Silicon Valley when I was in my elementary school time period. And so moved us out there. He worked on Alta Vista and all these amazing new tech things that were happening at the time. Growing up, I'll tell you that I did not like tech. I was not a fan of technology. And the reason being was it was taking my father away. And so naturally, this was something that I was kind of frustrated by. And so when I went to college, I got the opportunity to go play football at San Diego State University. And when I did so, I wanted to study the thing that was furthest away from technology that I possibly could. And so went into pre-law and political science specifically, and studied that throughout my time there. One of the things that my family always instilled in me was this need to work, understanding the value of money, being able to kind of manage myself. And so I always had a job, and I'll tell you, I've been a mechanic. I've cleaned office buildings in the middle of the night. I've painted tar on parking lots. Like you name it. I've been a dishwasher. I've done it all, right? And that taught me a lot of great skills. But when in college, when I needed to go work, I got this incredible job working for a company called Kyocera as an engineer. And so, of course, political scientist naturally gets a job as an engineer. And the rest is history. I became part of the tech industry and kind of grew up from within it. I've deployed, and this is kind of scary, but I've deployed well over 200 different products and services that have generated over $1 billion in enterprise value. And so it's been a crazy ride. I love technology now. I love the idea of dreaming and what you get to do in the ideation phase of kind of coming up with new concepts and things. For those of you that were here this morning, I thought Tim Simmons from Sam's Club just did an incredible job. Like my entire life I was hunting where you can dream, where you can invent. And so I started in the engineering ranks, then went into kind of systems, human factors, product engineering and hardware engineering, these kinds of things, but I wasn't finding it. Because what happened was often you're just handed requirements and you get to create within the requirements, but you have these guardrails. And so I finally landed on product management, and product management really became this place where you get to invent the future. You know what the business objectives are, and then you ultimately then turn that into gold. And that's what my passion is really kind of taking the status quo and disrupting that with new technology and helping to build a better future. So that's what I love to do.
So Travis Kelsey by night, Josh Sommer by day as the Vice President of Growth and Development. What are you doing at Cox now? So you've kind of come a long way from what you described a little while ago. So tell us a little bit about your day job at Cox.
I feel like, should I be laying down right now on this couch?
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe. That's why you're on the couch,
Oh,
I'm in the chair. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start with a little history. So Cox is celebrating its 125th anniversary this year. It's been around a long, long time, and it started in roots of Dayton, Ohio, as a newspaper company, of all things. And so one of the things that companies do, especially when they've had that long of a tenure, is they're very, very good about making strategic bets to diversify their portfolio and then create resiliency from that new portfolio. As disruption and change occurs, they're able to throttle up and throttle down, being able to see where the market's going to materialize. And so growth and diversification is something that's been, in our ethos as a company for a long, long time. And so what is my job? I get to lead growth and diversification for the company. And so I get to be a corporate innovator or an entrepreneur and really take this practice of business design. And so if you heard Tim Simmons this morning talk about design thinking, it was really, really great for products and being able to come up with what the customers specifically need and then how you can generate products from that. The other side of that is this concept called business design, and it was created by IDEO and Stanford originally. And what it is, it's the combination of design thinking and business strategy. And so it really unifies the two things. Stanford's got a degree in it, Notre Dame's got a degree in it, and then MIT has a degree in it. And basically we take this business design practice and we generate new top-line growth from it by taking business concepts and essentially building them out. We try to do it in a way where essentially it's hypothesis-driven. And so most of you, if you're familiar with how corporate development and just growth in general works, you create a thesis, that hypothesis for where growth will come from. And then if the right to play isn't clear, the market is not forming as fast as you would expect, or the environment's complex, then what you do, like an entrepreneur does, you de-risk that effort until you can find a way to get conviction and make investments as investments need to be made. And so business design is essentially this equal practice of customer desirability, technical feasibility, and business viability, and then how those three things interwork together to be able to deliver a new business concept. And so, long story short, I lead R&D, business creation. I have our investments portfolio from an inorganic perspective, and I have our corporate development function for our M&A activity. And so soup to nuts, everything to do with growth.
That's a mouthful. So it must be really cool to have this bird's eye view of cutting edge development. See what I did there? Cutting edge. So we have, as Chris mentioned, some breaking news, and I hear it's a treat, not a trick, that Josh is going to share with us. So give us the treat.
Yes. So I'm very excited to do this, and I'm very excited to do this here for all the reasons I mentioned a minute ago about this place being a great community. But it's also got this foundation of retail. And so today, I get to break the news that Cox Communications has partnered with Dell Technologies to deliver first of its kind computer vision for retail analytics for revenue assurance and shrinkage, basically being able to help our retail partners out from understanding whether or not there's label switching going on, or cashiers keying in the wrong things, or just general theft. And so it's able to basically do object detection and it detects what specific objects, what the cost is of that object, and then be able to correlate that to some specific action that that retailer wants to do, whether that be send the security team, whether that be ignore it, whether that be kind of keep a tally of everything that's going on. You're able to create these business rules to be able to then ensure that, from a revenue perspective, you are protected. And a crazy stat to throw out there, I was talking to some of my retail industry friends. They're close to 2% of total revenue is lost through shrinkage. And so that amounts to like $100 billion. So it's not just a little problem. Like 2% may sound little, but it's a huge problem in the industry. And so we are very excited to partner with Dell Technologies in bringing this capability together.
So what can retailers do about that, about the shrinkage and some of the future of the technology that you mentioned?
So retailers, because of their distributed nature with their store locations and the autonomy that they like to give these stores, they often have a tough time with just kind of automation and standardization. And so what we believe will really help these capabilities out is essentially provide the retail environment a set of, I'll call it, tech stack capabilities. And so it starts with just the foundation of what you all probably know Cox Communications for, which is this layer of connectivity, whether that's wireless, wireline, it doesn't matter anymore. All you guys you want it to be ubiquitous and you want it to be heterogeneous. So if you're plugged in, you're plugged in. If you're wireless, you're wireless. You don't care, you just want to be connected. And so start with that foundation. Then, what most people don't know is Cox has actually advanced itself into what I'll call the intelligent infrastructure space. And so we today, through our Rapid Scale brand, as well as our Cox Edge brand, we offer cloud computing. And cloud computing comes in multiple different firms, but think of it as the ability to host your application or your data where it's required in order to provide the best experience for your patrons, for your customers. And then the third piece of the technology stack that we've been working on is around data processing. And so the ability to be able to take action, correlate the data, take action on it, to be able to provide the insights to the retailer. And so this allows basically a full stack of capabilities, so therefore the retailer can do what they care about most, which is serving their customers, serving their patrons. And I thought Tim, again, I'm sorry to keep referencing this, it was such a beautiful session this morning. It was nice because he highlighted the most important thing for a retail store to do is have their associates focus on their members, right? Don't have them focus in the back office, fixing the hardware that's sitting in the back or the application, or having to chase security to go solve for the revenue shrinkage that's occurring. Like, instead, focus on what matters, which is the experiences that your members, your customers desire. And so I think that's what's so great about this partnership. Dell brings the physical equipment and a lot of the cloud computing capabilities from an overall edge perspective that can be delivered on premise. We then provide the connectivity and the intelligent infrastructure and the management of those capabilities. So therefore, a retailer can focus on what matters, which is serving their customers.
So Cox Edge will provide a great deal of ability to focus on shrinkage, less loss, greater loss, less loss prevention, and less shrinkage, obviously, but all in the customer experience, as you mentioned, but also it provides an ability to read retail analytics for the retailer, correct? So say more about that. Tell us more about what it'll have more capability to do on that side.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is really important when you're dealing with IoT just in general is that, look, there's a lot of noise, a lot of solutions out there that you can go and build with. What we find is that first solution that you choose is usually the burning platform. It's some regulatory requirement or some revenue, loss prevention or some operational efficiency. There's some seeding capability when you start to get into the IoT solutions that essentially jumpstarts your business case. Well, what happens is the market today sells you point solutions. They sell you, a solution for robotics and automation here. Then over here they do asset tracking, and then over here, and then it's completely disjointed. Well, one of the things that this partnership really brings is the ability for it to be seated on the foundation of a platform that will allow you to then just additionally add use cases. And some of the use cases that this will generate is customer 360, so the ability to understand all the aspects of what your customer is doing in your store, which then will help with footfall analysis and understanding how merchandising really should take place. And then the other aspect is inventory management. Inventory management is one of the most complex things. You heard it this morning on this stage around whether or not you've actually got it in the right location, at the right spot, at the right time, for the right customers. And so just generally inventory management. So this nice, retail shrinkage problem, which really is a burning platform that needs to be solved for now, will see, tremendous capabilities that then could be utilized not only on the operational efficiency side, but it allows you to start going after and assuring new revenue as it starts to materialize.
So I tease Josh a lot about his shoes because I think he always has the coolest shoes. So speaking of shoes and shoe sizes and things that come in a shoe size box, great things often come in small packages, and this one is the size of, say, your shoe box, right? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So I think that's one of the most important things is, as retail, quick service restaurants, a lot of these companies continue to deploy IoT. They're throwing servers in the back of their store. They've got engineers, data center engineers, and network engineers running around trying to manage these boxes. But what Tina's alluding to is we've been able to work with Dell to get a form factor that's basically in the size of a shoebox. And the power that is built into that device is just incredible. It'll knock everybody's socks off of. But it gives us the ability to basically take the surveillance feeds, and then we've got another partner in Epic IO that is the application that is loaded on this shoebox that essentially then processes and does the object identification to be able to then give to our logic engine to process the insights that then will be delivered to, whatever whether it's security, whether it be retail management. And so yes, this shoebox design is perfect in the sense that you don't need to think of it in a rack and a cooling, like it truly can be much more a back of the store type device that's just pretty hardened for the retail environment. And so it's a great application of this.
And I can see or hear from what you're saying too, it can also be used as a training device when you think about it too, right? So it may not be employee theft, it may not be theft, it may be true mistakes, right? So it can be used as a coaching and training tool from an HR perspective too.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, the ability for you to see cashier behavior and use that cashier behavior for coaching as well as for training purposes is just, it's tremendous what it can be done.
So what's the difference with this device and this service that makes it so special from anything else that's out there? Because some of you may be wondering, well, I've heard of something similar or platforms that are similar. What's so special about the Cox Edge?
So I think it goes back to this trend that you all are seeing. So look, the solutions that we are now delivering to our customers, broad, every industry, are incredibly complex, right? No longer are the days of just taking a widget and giving a widget to a customer. Now the widget needs to be connected all the time. It needs to be then low latent versus and reliable, and so that requires a different architecture. And then the data processing and data lakes need to be form fit for whatever the use cases are, and then the data needs to reside based on GDPR or whatever type of privacy governance body is out there. And so it becomes really, really complex. And so what Cox hopes to do with Dell in this case is essentially, again, remove that complexity, host it as a managed service, and allow for our retail partners to focus on what matters. which is taking care of the associates and the members. And so that is the differentiating factor. So could you go get cloud? Yes. Could you go get connectivity? Yes, and we'll sell it to you. Could you go get, a solution that sits on the top of the? Yes. But you're integrating that, you're managing it, and essentially you're going to have to deal with all the problems. It means you're going to have to take probably a person in the store to go and focus on this, which is one less person focused on where you make money. So that's the big difference.
End-to-end solution. Perfect. All right, I think we have a little bit of time here to turn the mic over if any of you have some questions for Josh while we have him before he turns back into Travis Kelce on me. Anybody want to ask him about chicken strips versus chicken nuggets? Or he said any question was on the table.
Ooh, now that's a good question. Skyline all the way.
Repeat the question.
And so the question is back to the Cincinnati chili comment. Do you like Skyline or a Gold Star? And I'm a Skyline fan, absolutely.
What's the difference?
Just different companies, different brands. One's better than the other.
Oh, clearly.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Preston.
Hey, Preston.
You talked about diversifying, or Cox kind of diversifies. To be honest with you, when I think Cox, obviously I think of internet and maybe TV, stuff like that. I was just curious as to what other things they diversified in. So I know as a small business owner in the area, we've learned over the years that we definitely have to diversify to survive, I feel like. It's just kind of growing our business. And that's played a really big part of how we've grown, is diversifying our business. So I'm just curious, you say they've been around for 100 years, and for me, I only know them for internet and cable TV. So, and obviously, they must be doing something right. They've been around for a while, so I'm just curious as to what other things that you've seen, and maybe things in the future that they may be going to be investing in or putting their time and energy in, along with what you're doing currently. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I love that. So as I mentioned, our roots stem from really the newspaper industry, and so we started as a media conglomerate, like a lot of the media companies did in the newspaper industry. I think at our height we had close to 65 different newspapers from around the U.S. But back to this idea that they've been very intentional about being entrepreneurs and diversifying. When new mediums started to come out, new ways that people were ingesting information, they went and would organically grow into, or they would inorganically acquire it. And so what I mean by that is they went from newspaper to radio. Very logical move. They take the newsroom and then use the voice to be able to distribute that. Then when television started to come out, they went into broadcast TV. And so our foundation is in this idea that we've constantly expanded into new mediums, using this right to play into a space where we can leverage our skills and strengths to be able to then grow into a new market. So we get to broadcast TV, and then the massive suburbia sprawl started to occur, and that's when cable formed. And so telecommunications came out of this idea that you would take the broadcast television off of the bird, and you would essentially go and distribute it in wires to all these neighborhoods. And so then we said that seems very logical for us to expand into, and so we expanded into that. The really interesting move that Cox made, and I think this was close to the 70s, was we realized very quickly with a newspaper company, television company, a cable company, and a radio company that we had to have significant fleet. And so we were buying our vehicles all from a very centralized location, this company called Mannheim. And so what did we do? We said, well, that seems like a good business to step into. And so we moved into the automotive industry. True diversification. So we were adjacent, and then we diversified. And we diversified into the automotive industry. Then all of a sudden we very much said, okay, this is an interesting space. We learned about the space, and then we started to see certain things form between our newspaper and our automotive business. And so our newspapers were starting to do classified for ads. It's called Auto Trader. And so Auto Trader formed out of our newspaper business. We then actually went and got financing to be able to support its growth, acquired a bunch of classified ads, and then moved it into our automotive space, and now we own Auto Trader, one of the largest digital properties on the internet. Kelly Blue Book is formed out of that. And so what you don't know is like you hear a lot of different brands that we have on the telecommunications side. So in the late 90s, as you can imagine, penetration got really high, and it became more difficult for us to find growth, right? And so we started to look at auxiliary services such as business services to be able to provide to the SMB business that's on Main Street in most of our communities that we serve. And so we moved into Cox Business and started to serve the commercial segment. Then we started getting into home automation, and then we got into cloud and intelligent infrastructure. And so what we do is we come from this place of strength, take one step out into a new market, and we try to build a whole market around the things that we do. And so back to Tim's point, like, we are the 5 to 10 years out team that's focused on truly emerging businesses, new business creation in order for it to form. We also are in the clean tech space, and so we've been very focused on sustainability. We got a couple agriculture initiatives, Bright Farm, which is an urban farming company, which is really focused on leafy greens, and then Murchi, I'm going to butcher that name, Farms, which is focused on more the tomatoes and peppers and stuff. And so Cox is everywhere, and people just don't know it because traditionally they understand it's a telecommunications business. But it's interesting to think about how you use your strength to step one place out and form new businesses and new revenue. And that's the approach that we've done for 125 years, and hopefully we'll be around for another 25, 50.
I've got a question here. So out of the 200 products that you've deployed, looking back on your successes, I have 2 questions. The first one is there anything that you would have done differently or you wish you would have known when you first started? And then the second question is, what was your favorite product to launch?
Such a good question.
Shoebox.
Yeah, shoebox. Shoebox is a good one. Yeah, that is one of my favorites. Look, I have failed a lot more than I've ever succeeded. So I'll just start with that. And one of the ways you get into corporate innovation, like if I would have told you my life story, you'd be like, oh boy, that guy's been through some shit. Like, so let me just start with, like, failure is a very, very common thing, and I find my resiliency is actually the thing that sets me apart from others. But if there was anything that I wish I would have known earlier in my career, is that, customers don't always want what you want to give them. So you need to get your butt out there and actually listen to them before trying to create something for them. And early in the career, you listen to top-down marketing analysts and consultants that tell you, oh, well, the dynamics this, and customers want this and this. And it's all shit. It's just terrible. It's just not good. It's not good advice. Like, you have to get out there and you have to talk to customers. That's one of my favorite things about coming to Northwest Arkansas, is being able to speak to some of Tina's customers that are just passionate about the thing they do, but they experience real problems, versus me trying to sit up in my ivory tower and be like, oh yeah, that looks like an opportunity. Let's build something there. So that's the biggest learning I had, is get your butt out there and actually hear from customers. Whether you're an entrepreneur or in corporate America, you need to do that. One of my favorite products I ever worked on, and this will date me a little bit. So Virgin Mobile had been a launched product and partnered with MTV back in the late 90s, maybe mid 90s, late 90s, and they invented this slider phone. And it was all over the place. Teenagers, college students thought it was just the coolest thing. I loved that phone. The ads that we put out to support it were, just tremendous. It got tons and tons of traction. And so it was just fun to cater to a segment that at the time I was living in, and then see my best friend have it and my mom have it and everybody. And so it was just very tangible for me. And so that's one of the reasons why I loved it as much as I did.
So I have a little question for you. Clearly you're a very innovative person that's came up with a lot of innovative solutions, and you have a lot of experience with it. And so I was just wondering, how do you go about that process of trying to find those innovative solutions and picking the most efficient one?
Yeah. So a little bit dovetails on that question, is like, you got to get out and you you gotta experience problems. Like I was telling in one of our panel discussions here, earlier this morning, like I'm intellectually curious and I love problem solving. Like put me in front of someone that's got the hardest problem in the world and I might fail at it, but I'd love to work on it with you. And so that's where it starts. It starts from just this deep customer empathy and using my curiosity to try to get so far behind whatever the problem is, just to be obsessed with it, to be able to get the passion and inspiration in myself to then want to solve for it. So step one is that. Then step two is the business strategy side of things. And so you can't just create things that your company doesn't necessarily want or you can't make money off of. That's a recipe for failure. And so the second piece of this is once you've identified what that customer problem is, then you got to understand, let me qualify it, what I can bring to the equation, let me figure out how I can package it and essentially create a business concept. And that business concept essentially becomes the foundation of your thesis for how you're going to grow something, right? And then, once you've got a business concept with thesis, then you evaluate, and I'm not going to try to get too deep here, but you evaluate what assumptions you're making and what uncertainties exist that essentially could cause you to fail. And then you go and test the hell out of those things. If there's any assumption that you're making and you have no proof point for it, that's where you start. You start figuring out, how can I run a very specific test to be able to prove this assumption? This uncertainty exists. How can I go and minimize its ability to actually impede what I'm trying to succeed? And so you just focus on those two things. You'll get to a place of product market fit. Once you're at product market fit, then it's just gas that thing. Turn the lights on until you can grow it to what you need it to be. So customer empathy, business concepting, understand what your thesis is. Understand what assumptions and uncertainties, test those assumptions and uncertainties until you get to product market fit, and then fuel it. But then never stop that process. That's the last piece of it. That's not a one and done thing. You got to immediately go back to the beginning and do it all over again.
And I love your point about staying close to the customer. That's great.
Hi, so my name is Sammy, and I'm a student in the Ignite Professional Studies program. And my question for you is, as someone who didn't have a set path in mind for your career, what's some advice you have for students like me and others that are entering our college/career plans and pathways?
So first is don't listen to any one person, especially me. So I think I have a little different philosophy than most on this topic, so I want to caveat that. I believe in serendipity. Like, to my core, I believe in serendipity. And so what that means is you build the strongest foundation you possibly can with a good education and as much experience across different functional areas as you can. And then you say yes. And you say yes over and over and over and over again. And guess what? You're going to scrape your knees. You're going to need to be picked up off the ground. Like, things are going to happen to you. But back to, I've failed more times than I've succeeded. Like, those failures, I learned so much from. And I know what I like and I don't like now. But you can pretend to have a brand. You can pretend to be as intentional as you potentially want to be. And you should have that. But the reality is, your career is serendipitous. You need to be in the right place at the right time. And the only way you're going to do that is being intentional about putting yourself out there.
Hi, my name is Kaushal, and I had a question about whenever you mentioned that Cox owns AutoTrader and other companies. So when determining about going into a highly saturated market, how do you guys determine the risk factor? Because it must be very, very expensive to enter a market like that. So when do you guys decide to pull the plug or just keep to push it through?
So first, if the market is super saturated, if it's fragmented, it's good, but if it's saturated because of some consolidation and you smell Google or Facebook or somebody in there, you ain't going in that market. Run from that market. Now, if you see it's fragmented, you see no clear winner, that is a market you want to enter and you want to do it better than everybody else. The winners, though, I will tell you, in fragmented markets come from the ones that can bring an ecosystem with them, meaning that it's not just themselves entering a market, but they've brought their, whatever core capabilities in their supply chain, if it's a hardware-related activity, whatever the SI is that's going to pull it back together. And so you got to have a fairly wide ecosystem to be successful in these markets. But I would say, first and foremost, understanding when you enter a market that's fragmented, you want to attack and stay focused to the specific problem you're trying to solve, right? And that allows you to bring that ecosystem. If you stay focused, you'll get to a place of product customer fit. And so you heard me reference product market fit, but product customer fit is this ability to understand that the problem is real and what you have can solve it. Now, that doesn't mean you can serve it. That doesn't mean that your business wants it. That doesn't mean you can make it. Like, there's all the go-to-market stuff that's now got to happen in order to get to product market fit. But you just take it step by step by step and stay focused the entire time. And then as the market continues to form, you accelerate, you decelerate in order to know it. I will tell you that back to constantly evaluating your assumptions and uncertainties we were just talking about, you should know what your fail criteria is before you make your bet. And so if this assumption ends up being this way, meaning that the reality is they only pay $10 for the solution, I need them to pay $20 to make it a business model that works, that's a fail criteria that I know I probably can't overcome, and therefore I should question whether or not this business and this current approach doesn't need to pivot or doesn't need to be wound down. And so you gotta, going in, understand what your fail criteria is to then take the emotion out of that decision. Because look, if you're an entrepreneur, you are passionate about your baby. And the only way you're gonna pull back on that is if all of a sudden you've articulated, hey, if this happens, I'm gonna do this. And that's where that fail criteria comes in.
Josh, we're going to do one final question, unless anyone else wants to sneak one in, but we're wrapping up soon.
Hi, my name's Ryan Evans, and I'm part of the Ignite Global Business program as well. Could you speak a little on the mindset it takes to develop an idea or a company, and especially speaking to high school students?
All right, so you'll hear a lot of terms out there: product mindset, growth mindset, but all those mindsets is high risk taking, deep customer empathy, awareness for the details and the ability to articulate the details. I'm trying to think of anything else, but it's this flexibility, and so the ability to pivot on a dime. And so the mindsets themselves essentially articulate this willingness to be passionate, but not so dug in that you won't make a shift or a move. And so I think that's what it takes. But you got to find your psychological safety somewhere, and everybody finds it in different places. As I mentioned earlier, I've lived life, and because I've lived life and failed so many times, that's what gives me my strength. But, everybody starting out as an entrepreneur may not have that. And so sometimes it's just about building confidence and knowing you're the right thing, therefore you'll run through walls in order to do it. And so, but the mindset itself is about this deeply passionate but flexible, mindset, so therefore you can adapt to the situation.
Well, Josh, they gave me the mic here, so I'm actually going to ask the last question. It's exciting today that we are, for the first time, breaking national news here at the NWA Tech Conference. Everybody give it up. What most excites you about this news, and what takeaway do you want to give the audience before we leave?
So I think I'm most excited about being able to solve for such a huge problem that the retail industry has had for so many years. I mean, I will tell you that even as a kid, back before barcodes and these things really came out, the label switching that was going on by my friends to be able to purchase the next G.I. Joe was just obviously incredible that these things happen. And so this is a real problem. It's a $100 billion problem, and just being able to support that in any way here at Cox and with Dell Technologies, who Michael Dell, for those of you who haven't looked him up before, like he's an incredible engineer, just a brilliant mind, like just in awe of this founder and leader. And so it's the combination of two companies bringing the best assets that they can, working on a really difficult problem, but really meaningful problem to the retail industry. And so I'm very, very excited to be able to bring it to market.
Let's give Josh and Tina a big hand, everyone. Thank you for your
Josh.
time.